Hi, I'm Jack Grave, and in the next few minutes I'd like to show you how I took myself from being able to last only 10 seconds in bed to having full control over my orgasms and being able to last over 30 minutes in bed consistently. And I'd like to show you how making this change literally transformed my sex life, made me able to give my girlfriend the best and most intensely pleasurable sex she's ever had, and how I now have her begging me for sex instead of the other way around. Now, I'm really excited to be sharing this with you because what I did to gain control over my orgasms, give my lover the most intense orgasms of her life, and ultimately get her to love having sex with me doesn't just work for me, it works for virtually any man, including you. In fact, it works regardless of how short you last right now, whether you're single, in a relationship or married, how old you are, how old she is, where you're from, how big you are down there, and regardless of what your woman does or has been like in bed in the past. And I'll actually prove this to you with examples of other men who've used my approach successfully in just a minute. But first, I want to give you a quick heads up. This video will not be online forever. I haven't decided exactly when I'm going to take this down yet, but all I'm saying is don't blame me if you come back to this site tomorrow and the video is not up. If you want to learn what allowed me to last long in bed, then watch this video now. And don't say I didn't warn you if you leave the video and don't get the chance to watch it later. The other thing I want you to know is that a lot of what I've got to share with you are methods, techniques and approaches to sex that I personally discovered. Many of these techniques I haven't seen anywhere else. So take any ideas you've read about in men's magazines, on so-called expert websites or other sex guides and forget about them. The techniques I'm going to share with you are fresh, new, and guess what? They actually work. Plus, unlike many other techniques you've probably come across, they don't make sex less fun, and they don't require you to do any weird stuff or wear special condoms, apply a strange cream, take pills, or use complex gadgets. What worked for me, and the other men I've since taught this to, is 100% natural. Now, since you're watching this video, you probably already realize that it's pretty important as a guy to be able to last long in bed, but what you might not realize is just how important it really is. Before I get into exactly what I and many other men do to have complete control over our orgasms, I want to share an interesting fact with you, and that fact is this. A study carried out at Brown University found that during foreplay and sex, women take on average, now of course there are exceptions to this, but on average 15 minutes to reach orgasm. Now, what it doesn't take a researcher to figure out is if you can't last at least 15 minutes during sex, then you've got a problem. If you can't last 15 minutes minimum, then the chances are that most of the time you're physically unable to bring your lover to orgasm during sex and truly satisfy her. Sure, you might be able to bring her to orgasm through oral sex or fingering, but is it really the same? I've personally found, and I'm sure you know this intuitively too, that no level of sexual satisfaction in a woman can be compared to having her experience an orgasm through sex. So, not being able to give your lover an orgasm during sex is obviously not a great situation to be in as a guy. But unfortunately, that's not the worst of it. Do you want to know what's even scarier than the fact that most men can't last long enough to satisfy their lover? Guess what, according to multiple studies, is the #1 reason for relationship breakups and divorce? Infidelity. In other words, the most common reason for a relationship ending is having your lover cheat on you and have sex with someone else. And why do you think people have sex with someone outside of their current relationship? It's because they're not satisfied by their current partner. Why else would someone put themselves through all the pain, guilt and shame that they know will come from cheating? The only reason can be because they're not being satisfied in their current relationship. Now, of course, I'm not saying that sex is the only factor in a successful relationship, but it's hard to deny the fact that if you can't last long enough to give your lover an orgasm during sex, then you've got a problem, and you could right now be risking your lover looking elsewhere for sexual satisfaction. Now, having shared these facts with you, I want you to know that my aim of telling you all this isn't to scare you. It's to make you aware of just how important it is to learn the skill of lasting long in bed. Because the costs of not being able to last long enough in bed to satisfy your lover are immediate and just too severe to ignore. And as a quick side note, if you're a single guy watching this, then realize that everything I say about relationships still applies to you. Because if you ever plan on wanting to keep a woman interested in you for longer than one night, then you need to know this. Now on a lighter note, the upsides of having control over your orgasms are incredible. As I've already shown you, it takes women on average 15 minutes to reach orgasm. But if you can last even longer than that, then that gives you the power to give your lover multiple orgasms. See, women are naturally able to experience orgasms many times during one lovemaking session. So if you can last as long as you want, that means you have the power to give her orgasms over and over again in just one session, and therefore give her more pleasure than she's probably ever experienced before. Plus, when you can last long, you also get the chance to explore multiple sex positions and approaches to pleasuring her that just aren't possible without control over your orgasms. On top of that, once you do start giving your lover these new levels of sexual experience and pleasure, how she looks at and perceives you will change forever. Giving a woman this kind of pleasure is what raises you to sex god status in her eyes. Forget about trying to convince her to have sex with you. When you give her mind-blowing pleasure because you can last so long, she'll want sex from you all the time. The bottom line is that having the stamina to last over 30 minutes in bed really will transform your sex life, as well as giving you the security that you can stop worrying about her going outside the relationship to fulfill her sexual needs. So, what does it take to get control over your orgasms and last over 30 minutes in bed consistently? Well, let me explain by sharing a story of how I made the discovery myself. And pay close attention because what I'm about to share with you literally changed my life. As I mentioned earlier, I used to be able to last only a few seconds in bed. And every time my early finish happened, I hated myself for it. I couldn't stand the fact that I wasn't able to satisfy the woman I was with, so I got determined to solve my problem. Like you've probably done, I tried a whole bunch of different things. I spent a ton of money and did a crazy amount of research. I ended up trying everything from special condoms to tips I read online to some weird solutions that I'm too embarrassed to even mention here. But none of it worked, and I got really frustrated. After a while, I started thinking things like, it must just be me, maybe other guys who can last long in bed are just lucky, or maybe I've just got bad genes. Sometimes I even tried to avoid having sex so I wouldn't have to go through the embarrassment of not lasting long enough and therefore face the possibility of my girlfriend leaving me. I got to the stage where I was just on the brink of giving up, trying to last longer in bed, when I made a breakthrough discovery. I couldn't tell you how it came to me. Maybe it had something to do with the hours and hours of research and experimentation I did finally coming together in my subconscious. But what matters is that I've made this breakthrough discovery. And in the short time that followed this breakthrough discovery, my life transformed. I went from avoiding sex to loving it. I went from being unable to satisfy my lover to giving her multiple intense orgasms. I went from having to ask for sex to having her ask me for sex. And as you'll find when your lover is truly sexually satisfied, I ended up having a whole lot more of sex too, because she wanted it, and still does, all the time. So now you're probably wondering, what is this breakthrough discovery I made that changed my sex life forever? Well, here it is. I discovered that being able to last long in bed is a learnable skill. As simple as it might sound, it took me a while to really take this in and accept it, but realizing this is what changed my life. See, the biggest mistake I see men make, and the biggest myth I see affecting men, is thinking that there's nothing they can do to last longer in bed. Most men just assume that because they've never been able to last long in bed in the past, they'll never be able to in the future. And this just isn't true. And making this deadly assumption instantly shuts down all of the potential you have to take control of your orgasms, start loving sex, and become a great lover. If you take nothing else away from watching this video, realize this. Having control over your orgasms is a learnable skill. How long you last is not the result of your genes, your penis size, your age, what your lover does in bed, or anything else. How long you last in bed is in fact the direct result of the things you do